So the Turkic Uzbek tribesmen had migrated in from the north and taken over Ma Warah al-Nahr or Transoxiana from the Timurid dynasty. They were led by Muhammad Shaybani. Muhammad Shaybani died, and he's buried here with the rest of his family, which is just outside the Registan Square. What happened shortly afterwards was the Uzbeks started fighting between themselves, and eventually they set up three separate kingdoms or khanates in Ma Warah al-Nahr. And these three were the Khiva Khanate, which was based in Khiva, which is in western Uzbekistan, the Bukhara Khanate, which was centered in Bukhara and Samarkand, and the Kokand Khanate, which was stationed in eastern Uzbekistan. And the situation would remain like that for a few hundred years until the arrival of another invading force. If we say that Samarkand was the jewel or the flower in the Timurid dynasty, then we would have to say that Bukhara was the flower of the Uzbek period in Ma Warah al-Nahr. Between the years of 1500 and 1800, the Uzbeks would litter the streets of Bukhara with magnificent mosques, magnificent madrasas, many caravanserais, and many nice bazaars, making Bukhara the pearl of Central Asia. In 1492, Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue, and in doing so, he ushered in a new age of world history. He was followed by many other European sailors who would sail round the tip of Africa and enter the Indian Ocean. And in doing so, they set up direct trade links with the empires in the east. What this meant was that the previously very important trade route known as the Silk Route lost its importance, and the middleman had been cut out. Unfortunately, that meant that this region, Ma Warah al-Nahr and Transoxiana, lost a lot of importance and lost a lot of trade. Over the next 300 years, from the years 1500 to the early 1800s, not much happened in terms of the Uzbeks doing things externally from their land of Ma Warah al-Nahr, or what's known as Transoxiana, until two new world empires arrived on the scene in the 1830s, and they started to view this area of Transoxiana as very important due to their own geopolitical interests. And these two world empires were the Russian Empire and the British Empire. The Russians were interested in the region of Ma Wara al-Nahr because they wanted not only to take it, but also take the countries to the south of it so that they could enter the Indian Ocean, which was the most lucrative trade zone at the time. Britain, who already had control of India, wanted to really stop this from happening. So they decided to dispatch one of their men, who actually came from Norwich, of all places, to come here, the Ark Citadel, to meet with the Emir of Bukhara in order to sign a peace treaty and a treaty of protection against the Russians. In 1836, Stoddart arrived in Bukhara at the Ark Citadel and made his way to this place here, which is where the Emir of Bukhara would meet delegations from all around the world. And when he got here, the meeting did not go as planned. Why? The first thing was he rode his horse all the way up into the citadel, which only the Emir was allowed to do, so that didn't go down well. The second thing, he didn't bring any gifts. That didn't go down well either. And the third thing was, after finishing talking to the Emir, he turned his back on him and walked away, which is a complete no-no. At the same time, the Emir thought that he was a spy and therefore had him arrested and thrown into what's known as the pit. So as you can see, this is where Stoddard would have made his way up and met the Emir here, and that would be the last time Stoddard would be able to walk freely on this earth, as he spent at least maybe 4 or 6 years in this specific prison in what is known as the pit. When news got back to Britain that Stoddard had been imprisoned, another man was sent to try and rescue him. His name was Connolly, and I think he arrived a couple of years later. But the Emir did the same thing with him. He threw him in the pit with Stoddard, and he decided to write a letter to Queen Victoria to try and clarify the situation, to find out what these men were all about. Unfortunately, Queen Victoria never replied for a year or two, and therefore the Emir, Nasrullah Khan, also known as the Butcher, decided to assassinate them both. So in the 1850s and the 1860s, the Russians decided to make their move, and by 1876 they had annexed all the land of Ma Wara al-Nahr. The Khiva Khanate became a protectorate of Russia. The Bukhara Khanate became a protectorate of Russia, and in the east of modern-day Uzbekistan, Tashkent and the Fergana Valley came under direct control of the Russians. At first, there wasn't much of a problem between the Russians and the Uzbek people until the 1890s and the early 1900s, when revolts started to break out, and these were brutally put down by the Russians. These revolts and the killings that the Russians did at the time are still remembered in Uzbekistan till this day. Then in 1917, Russia underwent the Bolshevik Revolution, which was a communist revolution, and then started to call the Central Asian Stan countries, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, the land of the Kazakhs, the land of the Uzbeks, the land of the Tajiks. The thing is with communism, it's an atheist philosophy. They don't believe in religion, they don't believe in God. Therefore, religious activities were highly discouraged and even cracked down upon. So many of the religious schools, these universities, which they had been built in the Timurid time and the Uzbek Khanate time, were closed down, and this resulted in a de-Islamification of the people of this region, and it would remain as the Uzbek Soviet Socialist Republic until 1991. A man called Islam Karimov became the secretary of the Communist Party of the Uzbeks, which was ruling the Uzbek Soviet Socialist Republic. In 1991, the USSR would fall, communism would fall, and thereafter this land would become known as the Republic of Uzbekistan, and Islam Karimov would then become the president of Uzbekistan from 1991 till his death in the year 2016. So here in the center of Tashkent, we can see that Mr. Tamerlan has got a very nice statue all dedicated to himself, and is very much seen as the father of this nation. Now, what I find interesting is that not only do we have his statue in the square, but in the background you can see that there's a hotel called Hotel Uzbekistan, which used to be a Russian state building when the Russians were occupying this region. And this statue actually used to be a statue of Karl Marx, but when the Uzbeks got independence from the Russians, they tore it down and they replaced Karl Marx with Tamerlan. Now, what is interesting is that it wasn't Tamerlan that got rid of the Russians, it was the Uzbeks who got rid of the dynasty of Tamerlan, and then they got rid of the Russians. So it's quite interesting who the Uzbeks have chosen to be the father of their nation. They've chosen a person whose dynasty they defeated. So just an interesting thing there about Amir Timur Square in the center of Uzbekistan, in the center of Tashkent. So that is the story of how some nomadic Bedouin Arabs from the Arabian deserts met some nomadic pagan Turks from the Central Asian steppes in a central location to them both called Ma Warah al-Nahr, and this fusion changed the course of world history. I hope you enjoyed this amateur video on the history of Central Asia and Uzbekistan. If you did, please like the video, please share the video and subscribe to my channel, and look out for my next Islamic history tour coming to you soon. Until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.